Do you want to be a tyrant, ruthlessly destroying planets, stripping them of all of their resources? Or would you rather be a benevolent tree-hugging catboy who likes sunsets? Do you want to fly in space? Or do you want to dig tunnels deep, deep down into the planet's core until you find lava? Those are some of the questions that will be asked from the upcoming sci-fi mmorpg, Stars Reach, a sandbox mmorpg that's taking a whole lot, from games like Star Wars Galaxies, EverQuest Landmark, and Ultima Online. And it's not that surprising given that it's being made by Raph Koster and Dave Jordan and about 30 other people. Over a 2-hour preview of the MMO in its current state, which I should stress is a pre-alpha or alpha state, I was joined by those legendary MMO developers, as well as some content creators who are fans of the game or excited for the game. Raph Koster, as you may or may not know, was a key pillar of 2 of the MMOs that have meant the most to me in my decades-long experiences with them, Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. And a side note, like, getting to do this stream, just like to geek out a little bit, but getting to do this stream with Raph Koster, the architect of so much of my childhood, I was internally screaming and freaking out a little bit. I think I mostly held it together during the stream, but I was freaking out a little bit. But it was really cool. And the good news is, well, I didn't have to fake any of it because the dev preview actually exceeded my expectations for the game, not just of what it could be, but where it's at currently. There are of course issues with like lots of things like the NPCs and PCs kind of like skittering about a little bit too much because of issues with I guess I'm assuming networking, as well as just the fact that the game is in an alpha state and it's very clearly in an alpha state. But then there's also one big meta concern I have that we'll get to at the end of this. But there's a lot of things to love as well. There's just so many options for how this game is gonna be played, from solo content to group-oriented loadout roles to take down big enemies. Hints at an entertainer-like role direct from Star Wars Galaxies that will help reduce your wounds, city building mechanics, and of course, its own incredibly unique blend of terraforming that makes you ask the question, will this cave collapse down on top of me if I dig too deep? And do I really trust my friends not to pour lava on top of me?
You got flares in the game.
What is that? What is the fire?
Yeah. I just heard Circella say something, but I don't know where Circella is.
Oh, I said I unlocked the ability to put waypoints, but I'm not with the group, so I can't put one down.
Yeah, where are you? Come find us.
Vivir is trying to do some damage, dude.
You know who you are?
But if we do this, like the lava can go down into this, right? Oh my god. The answer to that question for most of us is probably going to be no. No, I would not trust any of my friends to not do that to me and pour lava on me. Let's dig into it. The good, the surprising, and my concern. The promise of Stars Reach is as much a game as it is a simulation. Simulation not just across a single contiguous map, but across thousands of planets, frozen planets, fiery hell planets, and lush verdant ones, like the one we got to play around on. One of the key elements of the game is how the world itself interacts with you. You can heat up rocks, set trees on fire, dig holes that collapse in on themselves, plant trees, freeze lakes, or even boil them. Much of this we actually got to see live on this stream, and I was surprised with how well it worked. And having played, I can say there's an oddly satisfying bent to how the liquids like lava fill in the cracks as you dig out trenches. And this is all while the cubics that they're using are 1 meter, something that'll be shrinking down in the future that will make this even more exciting. In many ways, playing Stars Reach reminded me a lot of EverQuest Landmark, which is not super surprising given Dave Jordan's involvement, but also Enshrouded, an excellent builder survival RPG from Keen Games that really got me interested more in this type of game than I had been in the past. Especially the digging down into tunnels and crafting out locations. That to me was where the game was really shining the most. The terraforming and world destruction, and the world creation. The possibilities of what you can do on a planet seem rather endless, and even things like the ice have a tactile surface, making it so you can slide around.
don't know if any of them are watching the stream, but if they are, they should say hi. In game.
So if I just stored my life in the camp,
yep.
Hypothetically, I could go fling myself off the edge of the cliff and I'll be.
Yes, you could.
Okay, just hypothetically.
Hypothetically, the tall edge is the one to my left.
Now, what happens? When, let's say, if Redbeard Flynn decided to fling himself off of the edge and ended up being killed before going to that camp and saving.
So they are going to potentially leave a hole in the ground. That's the first thing, and I mean that literally. They can potentially leave a hole in the ground. Impact physics. What can I say? But beyond that, they're going to end up leaving behind basically a little blue glowy ghost that is waving, asking for help. And any other player in the game can come up to them and revive them. So it's another way in which we encourage players to be social, even if they don't know each other. You can help people in a whole bunch of ways, right? If nobody is around to help you, you have a couple of choices there. You can return to your last camp, or you can return to kind of the base landing zone for the planet.
So is that the world station would be the base landing zone?
That would be the world station. That's the base landing zone. Yeah. And eventually that'll be the place where your ship dropped you when you landed on the planet.
Okay.
Right?
Look, I had to test the fall damage, right? Like, it's kind of like it was on. It was on. As you play the game, the impact of Star Wars Galaxies is evident in the crafting, the homesteading, and even things like camps, which are kind of like a checkpoint in this game, which are a big part of SWG. We also didn't get to see them, but they have nests in this game as well. Also a hallmark of Star Wars Galaxies. The nests that you would go and hunt, like you had missions to go take out nests of, like Rancor nests, for example. And the more you fought the nest, the more Rancors would spawn from that nest. Sometimes you could overdo it and you could spawn a couple too many Rancors. That will also be part of the game. The nest, not the Rancors. Or maybe, who knows? I guess legally distinct Rancors. Combat itself is more action-oriented. It played like a frenetic third-person shooter, an arcade-like shooter, and we were able to train 2 skills by simply doing these things, gaining these special abilities from using the skill that had them. Kind of like Ultima Online or Star Wars Galaxies. The kind of way that you level up your skills that I've really been missing in games in a lot of ways, that have been really stuck to the leveling only kind of way that you progress. And don't get me wrong, I do like that. I'm a huge fan of, obviously, EverQuest, for example. I'm loving Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, but I miss that having a game like an Ultima Online that allows you to gain different types of skills by doing different types of things. And it should be noted that as we were doing this, as we were gaining this combat, the weapons themselves actually had different roles. There was a DPS gun that I was using, a grav gun which works like a crowd control weapon, a healer gun, and it was confirmed that we have melee weapons as well, which made me super happy since melee is my preferred method of combat always. And it's not just because I have really shitty aim, I promise. But that's a big part of it. But the Fencer, the Swordsman, the Terrascasi in Star Wars Galaxies, those were my bread and butter in that game. I was never gonna be a sniper taking cover. And that all these roles actually brought me to ask about group-based content and whether you'd need different roles, like an EverQuest type thing. The way it was explained is that essentially you'll be setting your loadout in camp, which essentially works like a checkpoint, and then going out into the world. So you can set a loadout that'll be helpful to you solo, something they're keen to say is a playstyle that they're very much wanting to support. Or you can set your loadout to be more integral to group play. Stars Reach sounds like in many ways like a game that is going to appeal to a more casual audience, but it will also have a lot of depth to it for the audience that wants that. They're building this game to be accessible and fun, and to that point, they've even mentioned that some players have managed to get the game working well on Steam Deck, which I can totally see, as the combat seems like it would work really well with a controller, with joysticks helping the movement, aiming, and even utilizing dodges. Which, speaking of dancing about and dodging in combat, movement is another area that I was really liked in this game. I was surprised by this because I thought it would be a bit more janky, and there were times, like there were definitely times where it's like, oh, there's some work that there's some polish that needs to be done in how you move into climbing, or like how you kind of like float up a little bit, but that's all alpha stuff. I was actually really impressed with how many different surfaces, given how different the surfaces could be, I could actually like climb up, including trees.
Just jump at a cliff face, jump at a tree. You can climb all the trees too.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. You also can unlock a grappling hook.
Oh, the grappling hook is so fun.
Yeah, I want that.
You can grapple all over the place, and then you can also unlock a grav mesh. The grav mesh will give you the ability to fly in bursts.
That's pretty. Oh,
Whoa.
I got stuck climbing trees. I got lost from
Can
everybody.
you drown? Let's see if we can
I
drown.
lost you going downhill.
Oh,
Are
you
you
can't
guys in the
drown.
canyon yet?
Let's see. I see. Oh, there's a
Yeah,
hole.
I see you. Oof.
When can you drown? Because I can't drown.
You can't drown right now.
I see you. Oh wow, there's
We've been
also like climbing up mountains was so much fun, and there's grappling hooks and stuff. And then I really liked being able to fly about in space, which was just awesome, or glide around on ice. That was fun. Till you fall. Not as fun when you fall. But there was also these things when you got these little arcade power-ups, like getting a double jump, which let me leap tall buildings. It really felt like a playground. In a word, it just felt fun. The game itself felt kind of unburdened. And it was confirmed that they'll also have things like spaceships, which will open up even more of the game, even more possibilities to go and mine asteroids and such, or find distant planets. I think this game has a lot of potential to feel like a really fun arcade-like sandbox MMORPG. Something kind of new, something different to the space that doesn't currently exist. The last part I want to mention is actually, for most people, it's going to be a very small part. But it's a big one for me because I feel like it's a gap in the space right now. And it has all to do with entertainment, or entertainers. It's looking like they'll be bringing back an entertainer-like profession from Star Wars Galaxies. When you die, you gain wounds, in addition to dropping whatever you gained between your last checkpoint or the last time you used a camp, essentially. But before you run off to get the corpse recovery to get those items back, you might want to hang in the camp with an entertainer, dancing and hopefully playing music to heal up those wounds. Entertainers in Star Wars Galaxies had a few iterations, healing wounds, giving buffs for watching and listening for them long enough. They were essentially a more stationary version of a bard, but they also worked together. Dancers leveled up their skills and learned new dances, while working with musicians who gained their skills by working in bands and learning new instruments, learning new songs. It was all completely non-combat progression, and it was an addicting path. Every time you got that next song or that next instrument, you knew someone had put in some time if they had certain instruments, kind of like they put in the work to get a specific armor or weapons. It just so happened that no combat was involved. And that's not to say that other games don't have something similar to this. Games like Final Fantasy XIV and Lord of the Rings Online have very, very unique music systems. But this is just one of those things that I've missed MMOs doing this kind of non-combat path like this. And I'm excited to see how the creator of that system from Star Wars Galaxies, applies it to a game like Star's Reach. There are other parts of the game we didn't get to experience during this, but ones Raph mentioned, like how there will be different roles, a leadership role that will help you get your friends together and into a group and combat things, a politician role for those who want to lead a city, perhaps like a democratically elected mayor, like the mayor who's been creating this city that we saw at the end of the stream. A city that Raph Koster managed to completely flood with water to the point where they had to dredge out mud from players' basements, forever changing the world itself. That seems like one of the things that's like almost on par with the Lord British event of murdering Lord British. And Raph Koster instead just flooding player towns on accident with water. Or you could be a brutal dictator to your planet, living out your cruelest dreams, which I imagine many will. It creates opportunities for lots of incredible emergent gameplay from PvE and PvP. Yes, PvP will be part of this game, but only on planets where it is enabled, allowing, as Raph put it, you know what? I'm like Faluka. I'm gonna let Raph say it because apparently I, for like the last 25 years, have been saying it wrong because I've been saying Felucia, instead of Faluka. Here's Raph talking about PvP. I had one question to just kind of like, because you're talking about social and everything like that, and it's interesting because you mentioned Ultima Online, and I'm a huge fan of social MMOs. But Ultima Online being my first MMO, I was extremely antisocial in Ultima Online because I worried that everyone would murder me. So I ran away from people. I know there's going to be PvP in this game, but I believe in the announcement it was talking about planet rule sets. And so would you be able to like stumble upon a PvP planet, or in like, I mean, it's all going to be player created, like so like maybe arenas created by players, all kinds of stuff like that. So how are you addressing the PvP versus PvE side of the things as well?
So the end game for a planet is players move in, they build on it. In fact, those of you who are still near the desert camp, if you look up on the hills right above the desert portal, those are player houses. They came here, they staked a homestead claim. Okay, you could actually do that by upgrading your camp into a house. As players move in and establish homestead claims, the planet becomes eligible to have a government. That government of the people who have established their homesteads there, you can only be a citizen of one planet, and the citizens decide the way the government goes and who the politicians are who run the planet. And they have the ability to set laws, like who is allowed to PvP here? What are the tax rates for player-run shops? Who is allowed to dump the hoppers where? Where are roads going in between our buildings? All of those kinds of things become things that the politicians can set. And it's one of the benefits. There's a lot of reasons why we didn't go with a seamless map. Boundary conditions are the bane of PvP systems. Right? So having really bright boundaries between different worlds is one of the ways in which we can insulate people who do not want PvP from, from getting ganked. But if players prefer old school Feluca You know, they can do that. They can set up their planet to work that way. And then players will vote with their feet.
The game just feels full of options. It feels full of emergent gameplay. It seems to be a game aiming to nestle neatly among your busy play schedules, but also allow for depth and growth. Like, it's almost like I would put this on one end you have Brighter Shores, like the ultimate casual MMO, and then on the other hand you have, I don't know, like PAX Day, the ultimate grindy MMO. Or EVE Online. And then somewhere in the middle, this seems to be fitting. Maybe closer, maybe leaning a little bit towards the leaning towards Brighter Shores. All of this sounds pretty freaking incredible. It sounds like it will fill a space in the MMORPG genre that has been missing. That innovative space of true sandbox that lets you play the game in many ways. That branch of the MMORPG tree that kind of just stopped growing after SWG, with a few exceptions and some more recent additions to the genre trying to make it work, like Palia and PAX Day. And it's that latter one, the PAX Day, that actually is where my concern is coming from. The concern about Stars Reach. When I think of the best sandbox MMOs out there, they're ones that have a box around them. What I mean by that is SWG had Theed, it had Mos Eisley, it had iconic NPCs that you knew and remembered. Ultima Online had dungeons, it had Lord British, it had guards, it had forges, it had Skara Brae, it had Moonglow, it had Dungeon Deceit. What I worry about with an MMORPG like Stars Reach is this over-reliance on players to create the game. That is what PAX Day is doing, and at least for me, it's resulted in a frustrating lack of a bespoke experience. Freedom can be incredible, and just in this short little play session of Stars Reach, I can see the endless possibilities. It's not a matter of taking that away as much as supplementing it, giving that little bit of boxing in to the sandbox, giving players a grounding place, an iconic home, a starting place, NPCs to care about, a world to care about, lore to care about, before you jump into creating your own. Player-created worlds are fantastic, but it's hard to replicate the care that goes into crafting world lore, dedicated zone design, and NPCs that are memorable because they're made by the team making the game. That is what I worry about there's not going to be enough of. Because it was mentioned that this is not an NPC focused game, it is a player character focused game. But that's one thing that I worry about, especially with this type of game, with the MMORPG, because it was so important to have those. At least in my humble non-game developer opinion, it was so important to have a Britain, to have a Theed, to have a Mos Eisley, to have those places that are carefully crafted by the development team. Leaving this test of Stars Reach, that's what came away as my standout concern going forward. Other things like NPC and player character skipping on the screen, UI issues, etc., all of that will be coming with time. It'd be silly for me to sit here and complain about lag in a pre-alpha state of a game, so that's why I wanted to focus on this more meta concern. I am well aware that in part the appeal of the sandbox is the openness of the game, and being able to have a profound physical impact on planets would clearly limit the extent of NPCs and important places of interest. So it's entirely possible, but this is just something not in the cards for Stars Reach, and it will just be an open sandbox. But what do you think? Are you excited about Stars Reach? Are you more excited about Stars Reach after seeing this? You can watch the full VOD of the stream, listen to everything that they had to say, all the questions from the other content creators. You can see that all in this VOD right here. If you want it's 2 hours, it's definitely worth taking a watch if you have the time for it, and listening to what Raph has to say about the game that he is making. There's a lot more to come with this game. There's a lot more development to be happening, and the team seems to be working very closely with their tight-knit community right now to make the game that they want to make, and the game that the team wants to make. But I'm excited to see where this goes, because this could be cool. This could be a very, very interesting and exciting thing. And I'm so tired of games saying, we're making the next SWG, or we were inspired by the next Star Wars Galaxies, and then not actually doing it. So let's take a look and see. Let's see what happens with Stars Reach. But I'm personally excited. It seems like it could be a lot of fun.